Well, hello, my studious chess language studiers. I am Professor Squirrel, and I am here to teach you a very impressive chess word today. Indeed, you will be saying Zwischenzug at your next chess meeting of your chess club or a chess tournament or your chess friends, and everyone will be quite impressed with you. Now, what does this word Zwischenzug mean? Well, first of all, what language does it come from? Does that sound English to you? No sirree. What language does the word Zwischenzug come from? Who knows? Who knows? Raise your hands! Have you raised your hand? I can't tell because I can't see you. Anyway, the correct answer is German. And it is in fact made up of two words. The first word is zwischen, which means between. Zwischen. And the second word, Zug, means... Huh? What's this? Train. In between train. Well, that's one meaning of Zug, but that's not the meaning that we are going for. Zug also means move in German. So we are not looking for a between train, we are looking for a between move. Zwischenzug means in between move. In between what, you might ask? Well, let's turn to an example right away as we explain what it would mean to make a move in between another move. Here is your example position, and I shall begin to explain. Let's say your opponent does something which normally you would have to respond to. For example, your opponent reaches out and captures this pawn with his bishop. Now normally, he would expect for you to take the bishop with the pawn because you had your pawn defended. So if he captures something, it's normal for you to take it back. But let's say you made some other move first. If you made another move with a really big threat, your opponent would probably have to respond to your move, and then you would still have time to capture the bishop next move. So for example, look at this really bad move with a really big threat. The threat is to take his queen next move with your bishop. Do you think your opponent is going to save this bishop over here? No, because your threat is so big, your opponent is going to have to first respond to what you did, and then you can finish playing what they expected. So the point is, your opponent plays bishop takes g4, expecting pawn takes g4. But in between bishop takes g4 and pawn takes g4, you slip in an extra move that your opponent doesn't expect. He gets your bishop for free, and then you go ha 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 and you laugh at him because he didn't expect you to play such a bad move. No, you shouldn't really laugh about that. You just threw away your bishop for nothing. That wasn't a good in-between move, but it was an awfully good example of an in-between move. What a good professor you are, Squirrel. What a good professor. All right, but you're probably wondering at this point, now why is an in-between move useful? That just looked like a stupid move for white, right? Well, let me explain it to you with this classic example. I'm going to let white move first here, okay? And for white, I'm going to move the knight into the center on this strong square here. But what pieces are now attacking each other after this knight move? You're probably looking at the knight because I just moved it here, but what other important thing is going on here? Why should black not just capture white's knight as soon as it moves into the center? What other attack is going on here? That is right, the queens are attacking each other. That is because this knight used to be in between them, but then I moved the knight out of the way. Now that's not an in-between move, just because the knight was in between those pieces. Don't get confused. Pay attention here. Alright, the knight moves into the center, and it opens up this attack between these queens. So the black queen is attacked, and she's going to capture the white queen. Now, as black, you would normally expect that white will now recapture the queen. However, white has an in-between move here, a move which makes such a strong threat that black won't have time to save their queen. What kind of move is the most powerful threat of all that your opponent always has to respond to? The answer is check. Did you guess it yet? Check. If you say check, your opponent will have to get their king out of check instead of saving their queen. So white plays knight takes pawn. Very good. Check to the king, and we just captured a pawn for free because black can't take our knight back. Black moves his king away, and now what does white do? Well, white finishes the queen trade and says, ahem, my dear sir, I believe I have taken a pawn of yours for free in between the queen trade, and that is an example of a good in-between move as opposed to a bad in-between move, okay? So remember, I showed you the idea of an in-between move, that you can make a threat, and if your opponent has to respond to that threat, you have time to then do whatever they expected you to do. And I also showed you an example of a good in-between move, where you use these two threats here and the possibility of not recapturing. See, if you recapture, your opponent has time to defend this pawn, right? And the way they'll do it is probably just by capturing your knight. That's no good for you. So you play an in-between move, you check the king, he saves the king, and then you finish capturing the queen. So it's called an in-between move because it happens between two moves which would usually happen back-to-back or in a row, right? Normally, you would expect that moves like queen takes queen and rook takes queen happen back-to-back, right? So the in-between move is a very powerful little tactical trick that you can use at times. And the word Zwischenzug is a very impressive word as well, which you can use to impress people. Alright, I hope you enjoyed it. Puff, puff. This is Professor Squirrel signing off. See you in class next Tuesday.